What's going on, guys? Andrew with Pride. I'm going to keep it totally real with you guys. This is going to be a pretty upsetting episode. I'm going to speak very openly about some of the shit that has happened to me in my life. I'm going to talk about some of my experiences with friends. I'm going to talk about the amount of pushback that I have personally gotten when it's come to my mental health, friends' mental health, losing friends and family members that I've cared about. We're going to be talking about men's mental health and suicide and a lot of the implications of those things. And there's actually quite a bit of questions that we're going to cover in here.
Warning for listeners, challenging topics like suicide and sexual assault will be covered in this episode.
So I actually put these questions out to my Instagram, and these were averaging about 100 answers. Quite a few women answered as well, but I factored those out. I didn't factor them out into these percentages, unfortunately, because I forgot to do it, but we were averaging 100 male answers on these questions. Okay, so these questions here are, and I'll get into each one of these at a time, but I want to let you guys know what they are up front. So it is, do you have a male best friend? Do you have a person that you feel comfortable crying to? In the last year, were you depressed for more than 2 months? Have you ever sought professional mental health? Do you see your mental state as your fault? Do you believe that is your own problem to fix? Do you have a general feeling that you are a failure? And is your mental health related to your capacity to work and provide for your loved ones? So, like I said, a few women answered these and I factored them out, but what I will say is the answers that women gave made these actually look better, if that makes sense. So, if for example, the answer is, do you have a person that you feel comfortable crying to? Almost every single female who voted on this accidentally said yes. But yeah, it's basically what I'm saying is like the female answers for these were quote positive, healthy choices. These are the answers that we should make. And I mean, even seeing that just kind of made me be like, wow, we are really like that in that fucked up of a spot mentally that yeah. Anyway, I'm going to end up talking in circles. So let's just get into it, guys. The first question, do you have a male best friend? So the answer that I got, and then I'm going to go through some studies, is 15% said no. So that's a little less than 1 in 5. Okay. 30 years ago, 55% of men reported having at least 6 close friends. Today, that number is cut in half. So right now, it is more like 1 in 4 men, 27%, have 6 or more close friends. 15% of men say that they have no close friends at all, which lines up exactly with what I have. And 25% of men under 30 say that they have no friends. And the way that study actually conducted what they call a friend is someone that they spoke to in the last 6 months. This is the reason that this idea came up for me is because I had a client asking me about mental health, and I actually had a recent thing where I had realized that I had not woken up on time in months. I snoozed and would basically get up 30 minutes before I had to leave. So I would, drink a coffee, shove some food down. But I have different patterns for myself where I recognize, when I do these things, I'm usually really depressed. When I'm not doing these things, I'm usually really depressed. And a big one that I notice is when I do not wake up on time, for me, that's 5 a.m., when I hit my snooze all the time, I'm fucking depressed. So this friends thing came up for me because it's really important to me to keep some semblance of, I guess what I would call like a group of like men that I feel comfortable talking to. And this is something that I really only started doing within the last year. But when I realized that I had not been waking up on time, I actually texted 3 friends. One who I am extremely close to, one that I haven't seen in about 3 years, and one who lives all the way across the country that I have never met. And I texted all three of them, hey, I've been incredibly depressed lately. I have not woken up on time in months. Tomorrow you have my word that I will wake up on time. The only reason I did that is because it creates, for me, a situation under which I don't want to let someone down. And it is also something where I'm letting people know where I'm really at mentally. Letting them know that I'm in a fucking bad spot, or was at the time of sending that. But it's also from a book called Way of the Superior Man, which a lot of people will not like that book, but you can kind of treat this book like a grocery store, take the pieces that you need, and leave the things that you don't. There's a thing in there about having a group of men that you feel comfortable speaking to. And when I read that about 9 months ago, something like that, I realized that I didn't really have that. And that got me curious how many men do not. And like I said, of the 100 men who voted on that Instagram poll, 15% said no. And then what we're actually seeing in the clinical literature is 15% of men say that they have no close friendships at all. So not just not a close male friend, but not a close female friend either. And I will link all of these as well. So this next one, do you have a person that you feel comfortable crying to? So this is kind of hard for me to talk about, actually, guys. So I was raised by women, my mom and my sister, and I fucking love them both. I remember being told, that it's okay to cry, like, that's healthy, yada, yada. But in full transparency, I feel comfortable crying in front of my mom. I feel comfortable crying in front of my sister. And I regret crying in front of a female partner, every single time that I have. I don't know where that came from, that I feel poorly about that, basically, but there's a study that I found. I'll come back to that because these things tie into each other. But there's a study that found women cry on average between 30 and 64 times a year. Men cry between 6 and 17 times a year. The number that I have on here is for men. Do you have a person you feel comfortable crying to? 20% said no. So 1 in 5 men who voted on this do not feel comfortable crying in front of someone. I suppose I'd call myself on the middle ground of that. I feel comfortable crying in front of my mom, my sister, my friend Allison, and then a few guy friends, Wes and Glenn. And other than that, no. I do not I would not feel okay crying in front of somebody. There's a TikTok that I will have Glenn actually intersperse right here.
To the point at which they cry. Girls don't like it.
So I've heard this before, that once a man cries in front of a woman, she loses respect for him, and she never does quite get back to the level of respect she had before she saw this happen. So I got kind of curious about this, and I did a few minutes of Google searching, found probably 10 different studies on the subject, and from 10 different kind of points of view, and they all kind of led back to the same thing, and that is that it's true. Once a woman sees a man cry, she never quite has the same level of respect for him. Now, none of us want this to be true. And I bet I'm going to have 10,000 comments saying, I've seen my husband cry 1,000 times and I respect him just as much. And I get that. Because none of us want this to be true. We all want to think that we're open-minded and modern enough to where it's not true. But the data, the studies, kind of seem to be pointing the other direction. Let me know. Hit me up in the comments. Tell me what you think.
So that clip is from Emily W. King and Therapist Dave on TikTok, where it essentially talks about, I almost don't want to say this part because I don't want to discourage men to cry, but basically what the TikTok said, as you heard, is that women lose respect and attraction for a man once they have cried, and really never comes back. Now, Dave talks about how he found about 10 studies and they all said this exact same thing. And I tried to find them and I couldn't find them, but I obviously don't have the same resources that he would have. But in my past relationships, I have noticed that when I finally cried in front of a partner, the quality, for lack of a better word, shifted, where it felt like there was something different in the relationship after that. There was a noticeable change in the relationship. And people have actually heard me say, I will never cry in front of a partner again. And man, I fucking hate to say it, that is unhealthy, that is a thought in my head. But it's even freakier because a lot of the guys that I ended up messaging, do you feel comfortable crying in front of someone, said that they feel even less comfortable crying in front of a romantic partner. And regardless what people will say, I don't know if this is on some like unconscious level that women just feel. I don't think women are intentionally like, oh, I fucking can't stand when a man cries. But with the data saying that, like, it's weird that we ask men to be more emotional, to be more open. But then when it happens, there is this unconscious shift that happens in the perspective of women. And I'm not saying this as a way to blame women. Oh, women bad, this, that. Like, if you're someone listening to this and you're like part of the red pill shit, like go fuck yourself respectively. But that's not what this is about. This isn't about like tearing women down and saying that, they should be this way. It's just, it is weird in my head that there is like what is said versus what happens on some unconscious level, losing that attraction, losing the respect. Because I even remember my stepdad, the man who raised me, I remember the first time I ever saw him cry. And it is the only time that I had ever seen him cry. He has been around my entire life. He is who I call dad, and I have seen him cry once. And I remember distinctly walking down the hallway, because I heard him, and I walked down the hallway and I saw him leaned over with his head in his hands, face down in their bed. And I just said, Dad? And he looked at me, closed the door, and I didn't even know what to fucking do. But it freaked me out that much seeing a grown man cry. And then there is Glenn Dawson, the owner of Reset You, who I'll have on here eventually. I remember when my dog passed away when I was 20, 21, something like that. 20 or 21, not saying the year 2021. And I was fucked up. This dog was my best friend. This dog was fucking everything for me, man. And and I'll kind of come back to why, but he was there through a lot of really heavy moments in my life. And when he passed away, it felt like I lost my best friend. It felt like I lost almost a security blanket. And I just held that shit in. I was like, yeah, it fucking sucks. Glenn came over to me and talked to me about it, and he fucking cried at the gym. Like a desk away from me, he came over to me and just fucking cried to me when he told me the story about putting his dog down, and that shit fucking hit me, and I started crying at work. And I remember that moment being freaked out that I was seeing a grown man that I respected crying and being so fucking confused that he was essentially giving me, I'm fucking crying now, essentially giving me permission to cry about this shit, because it was just this thing that for years, I, as a man, was told this is not okay. You do not fucking cry. And seeing him do that was just, it's still something that thinking about that, I could not believe that he felt okay doing that. And I know that that is not an uncommon feeling among other men, feeling that it is not okay to cry, despite people telling us that you can. There is still this feeling that we can't explain, but we know that really it's not okay. and that fucking sucks. This next one is, were you depressed for more, in the last year, were you depressed for more than 2 months? The answer was 67% yes. So, what does the literature say? Depression. 30.6% of men say that they have felt it. The percentage of men who have suffered a period of depression in their lifetime. So obviously 67% is only referring to the last year. Have you been depressed for more than 2 months? I don't have a ton to expand on that, other than I remember the first time that I actually felt that was very understandably when I was getting sexually abused as a kid. Yeah, we're going down that rabbit hole, guys. We're kind of going to talk about everything today, but obviously that was understandable. Nobody would probably be fucking shocked by that, but, well, shocked by my, childhood response to it. But I remember feeling depression for the very first time when I was 11 years old. And I mean, I even remember going to therapy younger than that and not fully understanding why, but that was the first time I can consciously bring up that immense feeling of hopelessness and just worthlessness. And yeah, so obviously my answer to this was yes, I have been, depressed for more than 2 months in the last year. There was a lot more going on in the last year than, but have you ever sought professional mental health help? So, I didn't qualify what I meant by help, but my intention in asking that was either seeing a professional through like an outpatient facility or taking medication. So, 1 in 3 men say that they have taken medication because of depression, according to a survey, and 1 in 4 men say that they have spoken to a mental health professional, according to another survey as well. And the answer that I had was 39% saying no. So 2 out of 5 people have never sought mental health professional mental health help. I, like I've already said, have seen someone. There is not just this piece of, men shouldn't cry, but then there's also this kind of implicit thing of men also shouldn't seek help. Seeking help makes you weak. So it is not just you are weak if you cry, it is you are weak if you do something to try and understand that. And again, I don't think that anybody is intentionally doing this. There is something weird societally going on, or maybe it even goes beyond that, because for there to be, as I mentioned earlier, this unconscious thing of finding a man less attractive when he cries, or feeling, less safe or protected by him when he cries, maybe there's something to that, evolutionarily speaking. I don't know. I'm not an evolutionary biologist or whatever, that, skill would be to really understand that. But, maybe there's a reason for that. But, to be told, hey, you should not seek help either. Again, not directly, because I have had women in my life say, hey, you should go to therapy for this. And obviously I did for a handful of different things, and I found it incredibly useful. And I highly, highly recommend any man who is listening to this to do it. Not just if you think that you should, but just to do it because. Give it a month, give it 4 sessions, try it out. You'll be fucking shocked what you find and what you uncover and what you can actually work through in fairly short periods of time. So, the next question. Do you see your mental state as your fault? 50% said yes. I am one of those 50%. I found a study that said if you blame yourself for the things in your life, you are more likely to be depressed. So basically, if you blame yourself for the bad things that happen in your life, I've already said that, but yeah, you're more likely to be depressed. So being that it was 50%, the women who did answer on this survey that I posted, almost every single one of them voted no. what is it that is going on in our world where 50% of men think that bad things that happen in their life are completely their fault? To come back to, again, what is a very depressing subject, me getting sexually abused as a child, I thought that was my fault. At 11 years old, this isn't something that starts as you get older. There is, in many cases, my case, and I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of the men that I did contact who voted on these things, a lot of them said the same thing of, from a very young age, I felt like the bad things that happened, it was my fault. I don't know where this comes from, but I know that men, usually when good things happen in their life, are pretty quick to, take credit for it. I mean, even something is, and this is, to lighten the mood, this is kind of a funny thing, but ladies, for any of you listening, go home and be in a super cheery attitude, and I promise you, the guy will find a way to take credit for that. Like, it's kind of funny, but it's just something that we do. The good in our life, we find a way to take credit for, and unfortunately, the bad in our life, we oftentimes find a way to make our fault as well. And there can be some value to this. Did you lose your job because you were being a fucking dumbass? Like, okay, well, probably, yeah, you need to take fault, take credit for that bad thing happening in your life. But, did someone hit your car and, you can't afford to get it fixed? You probably don't need to take credit for that. That is not your fault. But to expand on that question a little bit more is, do you believe that it's your problem to fix on your own? 75% said yes. I am also in that 75%. So when I Googled this, I can't remember exactly what I Googled, but it was something like, why do men, blame themselves for everything? The thing that came up was not, here's how you stop that, basically. Like, there wasn't any like tool to work through that and help people to kind of differentiate between, like, this is what is clearly your own thing and this is what is not, blah, blah, blah. The first thing that came up was, women, here's how you fix your man's bad day. What the fuck? Not because that's not well-meaning, because I'm certain that it is. But if men believe that the bad things happening in their life are their fault and are their own thing to fix, I don't think that there is a solution in someone else, because they, as shown here, they do not believe that there is one. I personally do not believe that there is a solution in someone else. I think it is my shit. It is my problem to fix. This next one, do you have a general feeling that you are a failure? 40% said yes. So 2 out of 5 men, yes, they feel like a failure. The ones that I talked to, it was basically just various things of who they thought they would be, what they thought they should have accomplished by now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I fall into that camp as well. This is not me, like, trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I've got a pretty incredible life. I've done really cool stuff. I've built a pretty successful business, and I'm very proud of myself for these things and what I've been able to do in my life. That being said, I still oftentimes will have that pop up where I feel like a failure. And again, 2 out of 5 say that they feel that as well. One thing that I found very interesting was only 1 woman actually voted yes. And to clarify with these, I did ask women not to vote on this. A lot of them didn't read that part and were just voting on it because, and that's all right. But, the majority of the women all voted no, they don't feel like a failure. So again, like, what is this intrinsic thing going on where when things are not going well in a man's right, it's just, this is my fault, I'm a failure, and I have to fix it myself. Like, these questions start compounding into each other, especially with this final one. Is your mental health related to your capacity to work and provide for your loved ones? 77% said yes. That is 4 out of 5 fucking people where the only thing, the biggest thing that their mental health is hinging on is, can you provide? What? Our mental health is fucking output based. It is not who we are, how we show up, how we love. It is none of that. It is, do we fucking provide? I Googled unemployment depression, and it was all about men. 5 years ago, so my birthday is November 19th, which is International Men's Day. And I still have the exact picture that I posted November 19th, 2017. Happy International Men's Day. Because 76% of suicides are men. 85% of homeless are men. 70% of homicide victims are men. 40% of domestic abuse victims are men. Men are the majority victims of violent crime. Men on average serve 64% longer in prison. Men on average are 3.4 times, more likely to be imprisoned than women when both committed the same crime. What of that is controversial? Personally, I'd say nothing. I had so many women messaging me saying that that post was misogynistic. Saying that a post about men's fucking suicide rates was misogynistic. That was 5 years ago. I brought up a few things that are a little bit more recent. The suicide rate among American men is about 4 times higher than women. Women are more likely to attempt suicide, but men are significantly more likely to succeed. White men aged 85 have the highest suicide rate of any demographic in the United States. It is 4 times larger than the population as a whole. 51 out of every 100,000 men who are older than 85 commit suicide each year, which is more than any other group by age, by sex, or by race. Before I started recording this, Glenn and I were talking about some of our friends that have committed suicide. It is not never, but rarely the people that you expect. I am talking about this because I have been there so many fucking times. Sometimes it comes in waves, sometimes it is very brief, sometimes it sits on you for fucking years. And we even shared our own experiences earlier this year when that desire was hitting us again. I wish that I could end this with, and here's how we fix that. But I have no fucking idea how. I don't know what the solution is here, because I would say, oh, we need to just allow men to express their emotions more. Well, we've got data that says maybe that's not great. Okay, well, maybe what we need to do is, have men go to therapy. Well, we tell men that seeking help is fucking bad for them. I don't know what the solution is here. I really wish I could end this on a positive note. If there's anything to take away from this, try at minimum having a conversation with a man in your life and maybe just ask them one of these questions. Those questions again, so you don't gotta scroll all the way back through this. Do you have a male best friend? I can very recently answer yes to this, by the way. Do you have a person you feel comfortable crying to? In the last year, were you depressed for more than 2 months? Have you ever sought professional mental health? Do you see your mental state as your fault? Do you believe that that is your problem to fix on your own? Do you in general have a feeling that you are a failure? Is your mental health related to your capacity to work and provide for your loved ones? Ask them one of those questions and you might be shocked to hear what the answer actually is. I don't know, guys. The client who asked me this question, I'm not going to say his name, but man, I fucking wish that I could put a positive spin here. And maybe the answer is just like awareness, because the thing that made me feel like it was okay to cry was having another man cry in front of me. So maybe this is, and God, please don't fucking think that this is me just like fishing, but maybe this is sharing it to someone else and saying, this is how I feel, and trying to gain understanding. I don't know, guys, but I'm all fucking ears. You know, if somebody has something brilliant on this, you can shoot me an email at andrew@pridefitness.us, and I'm happy to have you on the podcast. I'm happy to talk about this again. If there's something that I said that you think is poorly represented or incorrect or whatever, I'm happy to go back over this and, you know, do a part 2 or whatever it may be. But as far as I see it, the only solution is a massive societal shift that will not happen in my lifetime. I fear for my fucking children when I do have them. I fear that the son that I will eventually have is going to be dealing with the same fucked up mental state that I dealt with through my childhood. And, you know, now at 29. So I hope there's something we can do about it. So, if you stuck around until the very end, I love you so much. If you are feeling this shit, I'm so fucking sorry. You are not alone. My DMs are always open. I'm happy to fucking talk to you about this. If you're in town, I'm happy to grab a coffee. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see y'all later. The thing that's kind of hard with this episode is I really want to get this right. I want this to be something that actually grabs people's attention enough, and is informative enough, but it's like I've almost gotten like overly analytical about it, where I'm like, this is the order that this needs to be in to make the most sense to keep people interested, when it's like, fuck dude, like I hate that I need to make this interesting. I hate that I have to basically talk about like men wanting to kill themselves and make it an educational, fun thing, when it should just be like, holy fuck dude, people are killing themselves because of how fucked up, us as men collectively, as fucked up as that is, it's weird because it is literally, I have all these show notes on here, and like, oh, I need to talk about it this way. Oh, I need to connect these things to each other so this makes sense. And it's like, I really just want to be like, dude, so many fucking men want to kill themselves. I know. And I don't think people realize how fucking bad it gets.